If you flew in India in 2025, there's a good chance your journey did not go exactly as planned. Flights were cancelled, airports were overcrowded, safety questions dominated headlines, and regulators stepped in more often than ever. But at the same time, something else was also happening. India's aviation sector was growing fast. Airlines were adding planes, opening routes, pushing into long-haul markets. The government was rewriting decades-old aviation laws. New airports, new MRO hubs, even indigenous aircraft projects were being moved ahead. So, how did a year of expansion turn into a year of chaos and turbulence? And what does it tell us about the risk of flying in one of the world's fastest growing aviation markets? Let's break it down. At the start of 2025, India's aviation story looked optimistic. Passenger traffic was climbing, airlines were betting big on expansion, and regulators were finally modernizing the rulebook. On 1st of January, a new aviation law, the Bharatiya Vayuyan Adhiniyam, came into force, replacing the colonial-era Aircraft Act of 1934. It streamlined licensing, aligned India with global aviation norms, and pushed indigenous manufacturing under Make in India. In February, India became only the second country in the world to roll out electronic personnel licenses for pilots, digitizing certification and cracking down on fake licenses. By May, another big reform landed. India implemented the Cape Town Convention, giving aircraft lessors stronger legal protection. That move mattered because most Indian airlines lease and not own their planes. On paper, India was building a future-ready aviation ecosystem. But the pressure beneath the surface was building fast. And then came 12th of June 2025, Air India flight AI 171, a Boeing Dreamliner, took off from Ahmedabad bound for London Gatwick. Seconds later, both engines lost thrust. The aircraft crashed into a hostel building near BJ Medical College. 260 people were killed, 241 on board and 19 on the ground. One person survived. It became one of India's deadliest aviation disasters in a decade. Early findings from investigators pointed to a chilling detail. Both fuel control switches had moved from run to cutoff shortly after takeoff, and that raised urgent questions. Was it a systems failure, a cockpit procedure issue, a human error, or simply a maintenance lapse? The investigation is still ongoing, but the impact was immediate. The DGCA, aviation regulator, then ordered inspections across Boeing 787 fleets. Obstacle clearance around airport was reviewed nationwide, and India's aviation safety framework came under intense scrutiny at home and abroad. For an industry growing rapidly under intense pressure, the crash was a brutal reminder. Growth without safety margins can be deadly. The shock didn't stop with Air India. By July, airlines were reporting a spike in technical defects. Air India and Air India Express had 85 issues, IndiGo 62, Akasa Air reported 28, SpiceJet 8. Regulators responded with audits, inspections, and emergency advisories. At the same time, India inaugurated a high-tech black box laboratory in New Delhi, allowing cockpit voice recorders and flight data recorders to be analyzed domestically for the first time. It was a step forward, but it came in as a response to the tragedy. And just as the industry was absorbing the crash, another crisis erupted, and this time operational. In November 2025, IndiGo, India's largest airline, began cancelling flights. At first, it looked routine, but then the numbers exploded. By early December, over 1,200 flights were cancelled. Over 750 linked directly to crew shortage. Eventually, more than 4,500 cancellations across weeks. Passengers slept on airport floors. terminals overflowed, social media flooded with videos of chaos. What exactly went wrong? A big factor was the new DGCA fatigue rules. Remember, from July 2025, stricter flight duty time limitations had kicked in, which meant shorter duty hours and longer mandatory rest for crew, and limits on consecutive flying nights. The rules were designed to improve safety, but IndiGo's ultra-dense schedule and high aircraft utilization left almost no buffer. When pilots reported sick or hit fatigue limits, the system collapsed. It raised an uncontrollable question: can India's aviation boom survive without rethinking how crews are managed? So here's the paradox. Even as flights were cancelled, airlines kept expanding. IndiGo signed a damp lease for Boeing 787s to enter long-haul markets. New routes were launched from Tiruchirappalli to Jaffna. Operations began at Navi Mumbai International Airport. Air India added dozens of international routes through global code shares. Meanwhile, SpiceJet worked to revive grounded aircraft, inject fresh capital and rebuild capacity, despite losses and shrinking market share. India's aviation machine didn't slow down, it just became more fragile. And then came December, and with it, dense fog. At Delhi's IGI airport, over 100 flights were cancelled. Over 300 were delayed. Operations shifted to Cat 3 landing conditions. Now, Cat 3 systems allow planes to land in near zero visibility, but only if the aircraft is equipped, the pilots are trained, the airport has certified infrastructure, and not all flights qualify. The fog disruptions show how weather, technology, training, and regulation intersect, and how quickly the system can clog when conditions deteriorate. So, 2025 wasn't a bad year, it was a stress test. It exposed thin safety margins, crew fatigue risks, overstretched operations, gaps between policy intent and operational reality. But it also delivered long overdue legal reforms, investment in safety infrastructure, growth in MRO and indigenous manufacturing, a clearer understanding of what needs fixing. India's aviation market is still expected to triple over the next 2 decades, but 2025 made one thing clear: the future of Indian aviation won't be decided by how fast it grows, but by how safely it manages that growth.